Yo, dudes, Oren here. Today we are doing a mock draft of the Green Bay Packers, and this is just kind of like what I would do if I was Green Bay, what I think might happen. And keep in mind, like a mock draft like this of an NFC North rival of the Detroit Lions, I try to look at it from the perspective of what a Lions fan might think Green Bay would do, and like what Green Bay might try to do to sabotage, the Lions or get ahead of them, and or any other NFC North opponent, what have you, because the Lions are the reigning NFC North champions, and if the Packers want to get to the Super Bowl, there's no doubt that they're going to have to account for the Detroit Lions. So, and as Lions fans, if we want to maintain our status as NFC North champions, we got to keep an eye on our best competition, that being the Green Bay Packers. So, let's review a little bit of history. So 2 drafts ago, the Lions wound up trading up with the Minnesota Vikings to go like 20-ish spots into the draft, and then gave them Jameson Williams, somebody apparently that Packers fans really wanted for the Packers. And then later on, the Vikings used some of those picks they acquired from the Lions to trade with the Packers so that the Packers could trade up and draft Christian Watson. So, lots of NFC North working together there. And then last year, in the second round, the Green Bay Packers traded back with the Detroit Lions, and then the Detroit Lions drafted safety / nickel corner Brian Branch, which was somebody that Packers fans also really wanted. So, my interpretation of all this from the point of view of Green Bay Packers general manager Ryan Gutekunst, aka Goody, like Goody probably saw the Vikings and Lions trade. It was like, what the heck, you guys? Why are you working against me or whatever? And then like guilt tripped the Vikings into their trade where they got Christian Watson. And then last year, the Packers and Lions trading was just kind of a truce, a symbol of truce, so to speak, between the two teams and that sort of thing. So I could be wrong about that. And I think, anything's possible this year. The draft is in Detroit, and I think if you want to try to beat Detroit, 2 players from Detroit you got to worry about now are Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta, both of whom were finalists for Offensive Rookie of the Year, which is why I think a team like Green Bay may target people who have faced both of those players throughout their college career. So, and some of the players I selected in the Green Bay Packers mock draft, they have faced, Gibbs before, whereas certain people have been on Sam Laporta's team at Iowa before and have probably several practice reps against him, like in coverage and that sort of thing. So keep in mind, the Packers drafted Lucas Van Ness last year, who probably had several practice reps against Sam Laporta in terms of blocking as edge rusher and blocking tight end in those situations. Now the Packers might try to find somebody who has experience studying Sam Laporta in coverage, which brings me to my very first pick at pick number 25 for the Packers. Cooper Dejon, safety from Iowa. You've heard me talk about this player before. He's out of all the secondary players in the draft, I know Lions are considering cornerback and safety. Depth at safety is a need there, and my top preference for like everybody that's been talked about would be Cooper Dejon, or Dejon. I can't remember how to pronounce his last name. I apologize about that, Cooper. But it's universally believed that Cooper will not make it to the Lions at 29 because teams like the Packers might select him at 25. So if they want him, they're going to have to try to trade up and get him. But, about Cooper, he's, versatile. I talked about him before. He's like a disciplined player. He's very quick, and he's able to mirror the people that he's covering, the receivers and whatnot. He's actually the best run defender out of all this cornerbacks in this draft. So that's something to consider there too. And then the point I was making before, he knows Sam Laporta because he's most likely done reps with him during Iowa's practices for the games and stuff like that. And he's probably spent time with him. So he probably knows Laporta well and like has a good idea of his psychology and his poker tells and being able to know this and that. That sort of thing. Not a lot of people talk about the psychology element of trying to evaluate players, and which kind of shocks me because like a lot of a lot of decisions made kind of factor into that, like a lot of like memories and that sort of thing. So, but I think the things like that could come into play more than what we realize. So, anyways, Cooper Dejon, safety, Iowa, is my pick at 25 here. Number 41 is Edgar Cooper, linebacker from Texas A&M. One of the Packers' biggest needs is linebacker, and this was somebody who was a early top 30 visit for the Packers. So, based on what I've seen with scouting reports from him, with the resources available to me, shout out Broshmo and the spreadsheet. So, he's a blitz heavy linebacker. He's got a freaky frame, freaky long hands, long arms, or rather, he's speedy, so he's got that sideline to sideline speed to take down who he needs to. And then as his team did play against Alabama, which means he did face Gibbs in the 2022 season, and during that game, he had 8 tackles while Gibbs had 154 yards rushing. So that kind of gives you an idea of how they faced off against each other, because linebackers probably have to factor in the running backs in their game plans and their film and tape and everything, and vice versa. So it looks like seems like Gibbs had a reasonably successful game there, but Cooper, Edgar Cooper. There's 2 Coopers in these first 2 picks, but Edgar Cooper also was able to make a lot of tackles in that game, and I couldn't tell. I did the ESPN game splits on that, so I couldn't tell if those tackles were on Edgar Cooper based on the brief glance I took at that. So, anyways, Edgar Cooper, pick 41. And the Packers, they do have a couple of second-round picks and a couple of third-round picks. Partially and thanks to the Aaron Rodgers trade to the Jets. So, number pick 58, I went with Dominic Puny, offensive guard from Kansas, just to kind of get some depth for the offensive line for the Packers from somebody who's played in the Midwest area. So I know Packers like to draft people from kind of the Midwest area, and particularly like in the colleges from the Dakotas states, but Kansas probably shouldn't be too far off. But anyways, Dominic Puny, he's tall and heavy. He's got really good footwork. Getting ahead of myself in my notes here, and he's played both guard and tackle, so he has a little bit of versatility to him, although he's mainly thought of as a guard, and he's only given up 8 pressures, which seems like pretty good, I think. So anyways, Dominic Puny as pick 58. Pick number 88. This is Roger Rosengarten, offensive tackle from Washington. And if I'm being completely honest, when I did this mock draft on the PFN simulator, he was the highest offensive tackle available when I did this draft. And I know that offensive tackle is one of the biggest needs for the Packers. So we are addressing that here. So anyways, Roger, he's got movement. He's twitchy. So he's got that going for him as an offensive tackle. He's got powerful hands, and he's very nasty in the run game. So definitely asset for that new running back from the Raiders. They got the double J guy, Jacobs, I think his name is. And then pick number 91 is another linebacker. We're doubling down on linebacker in this draft. Jaylen Ford from Texas. He's got a nose for the football, so he always has a sixth sense of where it's going. He's pretty good in power coverage as well, and he's got really good pursuit speed, good sideline to sideline speed. And he has played against Gibbs. This was a nail-biter game, if I recall, and this was a game that Brad Holmes went to scout Gibbs, and Bijan Robinson and those other people played in that game. But during that game, Jaylen Ford, he had 5 tackles in that game, while Gibbs only rushed for 22 yards, but had 74 receiving yards. So factor that into consideration what you made. It kind of sounds like a draw with both players kind of having lower stats against each other in that game, but got to count for something there. And then feel free to look up these games yourselves and try to get more perspective on it. But, I'm trying to best give you an idea of who I think the Packers might try to draft that know some of the offensive weapons from the Detroit Lions as best as possible here. And then pick number 126, I went with Dominic Richardson, safety from Texas A&M. He's a teammate of Edgar Cooper, who I'm drafted earlier in this draft, but he's probably a day 3-ish type of player. He's a team captain. He's got really good instincts for what to do, and he's basically the commander of a top 20 coverage unit. So the Texas A&M, their coverage unit was really good within the top 20, and Richardson was the one making the shots for that. So, should get a lot of credit for that. And he's really good in zone coverage. So that's the type of scheme that you would want if Green Bay Packers decide to do zone with Richardson. And regarding his game against Gibbs, he did have 12 tackles in that game. And that was that same game from Edgar Cooper earlier, where Gibbs had 154 yards rushing. So, and I don't know if all of those or none of those or anywhere in between those tackles were on Gibbs, but you have to think that Gibbs factored into his plan from there, and he probably knows a little bit about Gibbs there. So, yeah, and then pick 169. I went with running back Carson Steel or Steely. Still don't know how to pronounce his name, from UCLA. And I figured they needed a running back to best, replace Aaron Jones, who went with the Vikings after things fell apart there. So, they're trying to fill the gap as best they can there. And Carson, in my opinion, is the one of the best and underrated running backs in this class. Blake Corum was another popular name with that too, but he'll probably go like way higher in the draft if I think of things right there. So, but he's a power back, and he was on Bruce Feldman's freak list. He can bench press a whole lot, pretty good too there. And he's got a nice jump cut move apparently, and he has a great vision of the field, which allows him to get a lot of chunk yards on a lot of plays. So Carson could be an asset for any team that drafts him, especially with the Packers. And then I decided to trade up from the remaining draft picks to get 170. Like I don't spend too much time trying. I didn't do this last year either. I did the same thing last year because I didn't want to spend too much time trying to figure out day 3 picks for other teams besides the Lions. So I just went ahead and traded up with the rest of the draft picks all the way to pick 170. So it's back to back 169, 170. And with that pick, I went with Sam Hartman, quarterback from Notre Dame. And I heard the Packers might be drafting another backup quarterback just to kind of keep things fresh in the quarterback room there. And I figured somebody from a school nearby Green Bay, somewhere within the Midwest, why not? And he was a team captain there. He's really good under pressure with his decisions and his passing and all that. He's good at processing the field and making good decisions with the ball. And he has plus mobility too, but not a whole lot, I guess. But he's also got really good mechanics and really good grit for a player. So I figured, there's a lot of quarterbacks late day 3 range, and Sam Hartman's kind of the one that sticks out to me the most. So I just kind of went with him there, and I figured he was local enough that the Packers might be interested in him there. And he seems like the type of quarterback that won't make a lot of mistakes for you, and maybe a good backup there. So anyways, to recap my mock draft for Green Bay: number 25, Cooper Dejon; number 41, Edgar Cooper; number 58, Dominic Puny; number 88, Rosen; number 91, Jaylen Ford; number 126, Dominic Richardson; number 169, Carson Steel; and number 170, after trading up, Sam Hartman. So let me know from the perspective of the Lions what you think of this mock draft for the Packers. Do you think the Packers are going to try to draft up people that the Lions might want, or people who know the people on the current Lions roster? Do you think they're going to go a different avenue with it? I know they want to target safety, offensive tackle, and linebacker as best they can. And names like a Cooper from Iowa have really popped up, as well as both Cooper names really have popped up a lot for Green Bay's with that sort of stuff. But I think, I mean, I could do a case study on this, but in the last few years, the Packers always seem to go with a defensive player in the first round, no matter what, despite how much noise we hear about it in the draft. So I, I'm just going to assume that the same thing is going to happen with the Packers again, um, with a first round with a defensive player. But we shall wait and see. So stay tuned for a mock draft similar to this for the Vikings as well as for the Bears, and then 2 days before the draft, I'll do a mock draft of the Lions based on their top 30 visits and possibly other players. And then the day before will be my final Lions mock draft, where I'll probably do some combination of what I think Brad Holmes will do as well as what I would do. But yeah, thank you for watching, and always remember, I'm just trying to help.